It's important to develop a niche. If you try to be everything to everybody, you end up being nothing to no one. When you're passionate about something, you can find success in it, no matter what it is, no matter how little you know about it. If you throw yourself into something and you go all in, through time, you will learn enough. And if you're disciplined and you work hard, there's nothing you can't do. And listen, the way real estate is built right now, it would be very, very difficult to come in and have tremendous success anymore. The large teams consume and control almost all of these things. So it would be very difficult. And here's the other piece is that I want to have flexibility, or I want to have time. You're going to work more than ever. You just get to manage that time a little bit differently on when you're choosing your time to do things with your friends or family or whatever. But at the end of the day, we all need accountability, camaraderie, a team. The dynamic that goes on inside of that team is way greater than just business also. So many people that have success, you throw them on an island by themselves, they can't keep doing it. Humans are not meant to be isolated. They're meant to be together. They're meant to work together and to function together. And so every single person should go join a team. Just make sure you join the right team.
I mean, you run stuff up there in my hometown area. I see your billboards every time I go up there.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're trying. It's one of those things that's like we're blessed and we're just working hard and trying to take care of people. And that's what it's all about.
That's awesome. I've been friends with you on Facebook for a while, but it's just, your approach and your messaging is really good.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I really do.
The t-shirts and the We Serve thing. I think that's really cool. So tell me a little bit about your business, when it started and what's going on with it now.
Yeah. I mean, I got into real estate, I'm not a numbers person. I'm not a like, hey, this timeline. There are certain moments in my life that I remember really well, right? Big events, big, really good events, big, not so good events. I tend to remember those things. And then some of those things I like to block as well.
Right.
But I honestly don't even know how long I've been licensed. People ask me that all the time. I'm like, shit, I don't know, man. What does it matter? But for the sake of just to give people some context, I've been in real estate for a while now, right? I don't know. I'm guessing maybe 12 or 15 years. I mean, that's how broad it is because I don't freaking know. But essentially, I started out as an agent. I got licensed. I was trying to pay the bills. I'd never really envisioned any of these things, building this big business, having almost 100 people that we, I hate to say employed because essentially, I don't employ them. They employ our brand. You know what I mean? Yeah. And we are a team and we are a family and we're working together. So I hate to say that, but to give context to people, like, people that work inside of our company, staff and agents. And I just, that was never my mission. It certainly is now because I see the positive impact that we're able to have on people's lives, right? And so there was a turning point that, okay, now I see what God has in store for me and why. But up until then, man, I was just trying to pay the bills. I was broke as a joke. I'm 51, I think, 52 maybe. I don't know. Again, what's it matter, right? But I mean, when I was 35, I was broke as shit. I had just gotten into real estate, and I didn't really have any direction in my life. And I just I got busy taking care of myself and figuring my own shit out. And that just evolved, and over time, ended up where we are. So we've been very blessed, as we've grown this business and looking to continue to do that and really for the impact that it has on the people inside of our organization.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what do you think at what point did you, I mean, was it all of a sudden that you had the growth with your team and the amount of people that you work with? Did that happen? Was it like you turn around, you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this many people work here? Or, I mean, you had to put some intention into it.
Well, yeah, I mean, it reached a point for me, like I'm a relationship person, right? Like in anything I do, like I like to build relationships. So everything was relational for me. And as, most people, I shouldn't say most people, but now building a team is, there's a bit of a fad to it, right? And I think we're past a little bit, but there was a time for sure when like everybody wanted to build a team because they just thought, oh, that makes money. And most of them, frankly, don't, right? And I think because they're structured incorrectly, only because they're structured with the intent in mind. Now, I know some people have done this, but not very many. They're structured with the intent of, oh, it's all about making money. For me, that was never the case. I had 3 assistants before we hired our first agent. And for me, it was all about serving people. And once I felt like I was so busy that relationships were at risk, I didn't want to risk losing those relationships because I understood relationships are the business, right? So the longevity of the business is the client, is the relationship that you build with them. So as soon as I started to feel like, oh shit, starting to slip through the cracks, I knew that I had to add layers essentially of protection, and that came in with adding my first buyer's agent, and then that just slowly continued to grow. And I think because I didn't have this, oh gosh, I'm going to grow the biggest thing ever. I didn't have this ego behind what we were doing. We were really doing it out of the real intent was to help people, that it was a slow growth. And then it did reach a point where it just all of a sudden started to really take off. But we had such a strong the very first person I ever hired still works with me now. The second person I ever hired still works with me now. And I'm not talking agents, I'm talking staff, right? These 3 staff that I told you I had before I hired an agent. The third one still works with us now. And so just building a very, very strong foundation. And because of that, I think that's allowed us to really grow in a very organic way, but in a way also that we maintain who we are, we maintain our core values, we maintain the integrity of what we're trying to do, which is serving people at the end of the day, whether that's the people inside of our organization. And obviously the biggest piece of that is serving the consumer.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, the people, that's obviously that's a big piece for you is the people you serve. That's really cool. And then as far as, so where you are now, what kind of changes have you seen? Obviously the business changes when it's not just you doing business. So, as far as where you get your business from and how business has grown, what's the biggest changes you've seen in that time?
Well, I think those are all small micro changes that evolve over time, right? You can certainly look at the big players and how they have an effect on real estate and on leads and all of those things. But the majority of it has been building a very strong brand in our area over a long period of time, right? That longevity piece. And that sticks with us no matter what happens with lead sources, whether it's, because I think in real estate, we always think about everything as more leads, more leads, more leads. We really are focused on 3 or 4 lead sources that we just try to manage really well and inside of build long-term relationships. So we have that repeat business over and over. So there's never been this one big thing for us. We are a Zillow Flex partner, which that's been a great addition to our business. But again, it's only about 25-30% of our business. And so we want to be diverse in what we're doing. And so we continue to build our brand and not rely on any one lead source. But also at the same spectrum, we don't try to go get 20 or 30 lead sources. I think that having 3 or 4 staples that you can do really well, and honestly, we've built a lot of those around that same fundamental, which is relationships, right? So open houses. We're still doing 10, 15, 20 open houses every week. And that number varies based on, we're in Michigan, in January 5th, we do less open houses than we do July 5th, right? Every single weekend. It's just staying true to that process and building those relationships and being in the community. And I think that's another thing that we've done really well over time is been in the community. We do a lot of fundraising. I just presented a check last night to one of the local schools for $5,300, and that's now over 15,000 that we've donated to that one school, and doing that across the board, and just trying to be very focused on the community has always been important to me and important to our organization.
How many markets do you serve, or how many counties?
We're not in a metropolitan area, right? We're what people would consider rural, even though we're not out in the sticks. Because nationally, there's all these different ideas of what rural means. But we're not in a metropolitan area, right? There aren't skyscrapers everywhere and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people. So we have to serve a few different counties. And for example, with our Zillow Flex, we're in 40 different zip codes. But we do have 2 other offices as well. We have an office in Traverse City, which is 4 hours north of where we are. And then we have one in Brighton, which is it's in Livingston County, about a half hour south of us. So we serve, probably 5 different counties locally. And then we serve another county out of the office up north.
That compared to Kentucky, I think there's 120 counties in Kentucky.
Yeah, right. Totally different.
we sold 28 of them last year, but there's 120. There's 120. There's more than anywhere in the, but yeah, I'm very familiar with that area. But yeah, so the counties. So then, were you ever focused on like one, I know you do a lot with the lake there, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
was that like the beginning? Is that where you started to really focus, and then it went outward from there?
Yeah, that's a great point. I do think that, and again, it depends where everyone is at in their business, but I think it's important to develop a niche. If you try to be everything to everybody, you end up being nothing to no one. And so I remember when I first got my website, which by the way, now having a website doesn't even matter really, right? But I remember when I first got my website, it was like every city I've ever thought of in my life, I had on there that I'll sell anywhere, right? And because of that, I was ending up in areas that I wasn't familiar with. But frankly, I just never developed a niche for something. And being in Fenton with all of our lakes, it was always a goal of mine to live on a lake someday. And so there was just kind of that parallel where like, okay, it wasn't so much about like, oh, those homes are more expensive, so I want to sell those homes. I was very much drawn to that lifestyle and having that dream and that goal of living on Lake Fenton someday, right? Because my uncle did, and that motivated me. He was an entrepreneur. And that was a big parallel for my dad, who worked at GM in the shop, right? Obviously, being in Flint, Michigan, everything then. I mean, I was going to work in GM, right? That's like what everybody thought they were going to do in our area. Yeah. But so I did. I started narrowing down on not just the waterfront, but specifically, I live in Fenton. I'm going to just start focusing on Fenton. I grew up and graduated Grand Blanc. I'm going to focus on Grand Blanc. So those were the two areas that I just really started marketing to. And I started in the foreclosure crisis, man. So I didn't have to think about being a list agent. All I had to do was meet people that were interested in buying homes, build relationships with them, and then help them get into the home of their dreams. And so I think that helped me too, because a lot of people walk into real estate and they want to do it all instead of having that niche, right? So when people join our team, unless they're already have been in real estate, they come in as a buyer's agent only. And we walk them through that process because one, we can get them up and running quicker. We can get them success quicker. And we have so many darn buyer appointments every month. Yeah. We can seal a lot quicker. But then once I started having some sales and some success, I just kept remarketing to those areas. And that happened to be the lakes. And then that really took off. And so I made that a niche. We got a website, wentworthwaterfront.com. We did a lot of marketing specific to waterfront. And it just started to kind of catch fire. I think even though people were selling on the lakes, they were afraid to put their identity into that one niche. And because I didn't have anything to lose. And so you said it right, like that built. And then from there, it started to grow out, right? Like they can sell these homes on the lake. They're certainly qualified to sell land. Yeah. From there.
I started with expireds and FSBO, so I was all over. That's what got me such a wide footprint. And now, after I don't know how many years I've been in real estate now, it's probably like 10. Now I'm starting to like niche down, like I did the opposite. I was like really wide, and now it's coming in closer. What about the horses? I see that horse behind you. I noticed that, so you run with the horses.
Yeah. So I, before I got into real estate, hockey was always my thing, right? Growing up, hockey. And my senior year, our hockey team went to the racetrack in Sports Creek, which was harness racing. So for the people that don't know what harness racing is, like the buggy behind the horse. I have a picture somewhere. And I just was very drawn to that. I'm like, fuck hockey. That's what I want to do. And within a couple of weeks, I had a job cleaning stalls for Giovanni Sanitari, God rest his soul. A trainer at the local track. Well, I was introduced through a buddy of mine from school who happened to just move here from New York, and his dad knew the track announcer. I mean, crazy shit. And that's what I ended up doing for a long time. And that was, that's a very, very difficult industry. And I went into it with no knowledge. I had never touched a horse in my life, but this just goes back to like, man, when you're passionate about something, you can find success in it, no matter what it is, no matter how little you know about it. If you throw yourself into something and you go all in, through time, you will learn enough. And if you're disciplined and you work hard, there's nothing you can't do. And I ended up being, I trained for 15 years. I mean, I had 26 horses at one point that I trained. I drove horses. I was one of the leading drivers and trainers in North America. I was living in Quebec, in Gatineau. And I went to New Jersey. I was in New York. I ended up living in Quebec because the industry died in Michigan. The harness industry was dying in Michigan. So you had to move around to make any money. And then I just kind of got burnt out on that. I was living in, as I said, in Quebec. I would race in Ottawa, and then I would go to Montreal on Saturday, and then I would very often drive home for 3 or 4 days. And I just got tired of that. And I have a 24-year-old who actually works in our marketing department right now.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was such a blessing. And that was from a previous relationship. So I only had part-time custody of him. And as he was growing older, 3, 4, 5, 6, here, my dumbass, I'm in Ottawa. And I just was like, you know what? I'm done. I'm done. Like, I'm either all in on something or I'm all out. Like, I don't dip my toe in the water on shit. Like, if I'm going in, we're going to make it work. And then consequently also, like, if I'm done with something, I'm done. And I'm not, this sounds really weird, but I'm that way with people too. Like, I can cut people off so easily. And it's like, and I think a lot of that comes from my childhood, but it's a positive. And, sometimes it's viewed as a negative, but I guess as hard as I can love something or someone, I can also just move on at the same time. Yeah. Anyway, I moved home and I started flipping houses. I didn't have, yeah, that's how I got into real estate. I quit the horses. I moved back home. I had no education because I never went to college. I barely graduated high school. And a buddy of mine that owns some of these horses with me, he's like, well, what do you want to do? I'm like, I don't know. Let's flip houses. That looks cool. And I have zero skills still. I don't even own a friggin' screwdriver, right? Like, I have zero skills in this. But what I did have the skill of even at that time was, again, relationships, introductions to people, getting people involved in growing this. And so I did that for a while, and then the market tanked. And when the market tanked, I had already gotten my license, so I just went all in on real estate. Obviously a blessing, right? I mean, that worked out pretty good.
Yeah,
and
that's cool.
Racing the horses taught me so much too, because you're dealing with so many different people from so many different backgrounds on so many levels of wealth, right? You're dealing with people that are struggling to get by, all the way up to people that are the owners of some of these horses that are millionaires.
Or more than that. The first horse farm I ever went to was Shadwell Farms. Mm-hmm. The Shake.
Shadwell, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm getting the tour of this farm. My ex-wife knew the trainer there, Irish guy. Anyway, he takes us around the farm, and I'm like, adding up. Like, I'm looking at the buildings, and I'm like, wait a minute, that barn is special. Like, there's something special about it. I don't know what it is, but that thing costs more money than a normal barn. Yeah. And then he started giving me the details of it. And then I'm looking at the landscaping, and it's like nicer than Disney World, like, I mean, every piece of it. And I'm like adding this up in my calculator, like in my head. And I'm like, how does this work? Like, where does this come from? How do you make money in the horse business? And then I realized that this was just a hobby for this guy. And I mean, tens of millions of dollars. I don't know how much they spent a month, but it was millions and millions of dollars to fund this hobby. But, there are people in the business that make money too. But yeah, I don't know if they.
So I got out of horses into real estate, all in, like I said. And then I went to our church auction, and there was an auction for this Kentucky Derby experience. I bought this thing. I brought like 6 friends. I like to do things with a lot of people because to me, life is about experiences, right? And I like to enjoy experiences with people that I love, that I like to be around. So we all go down there, we have this experience, and one of the guys that actually, when I was training horses before, he worked for me, all right? Again, I like to say worked with me, but for context, he worked for me. And then he quit working for me, and he got into real estate. So he happened to be in real estate, and this was one of my best friends for a long time. And I'm like, all right, well, let's buy a horse. So he played professional hockey here in Flint for the Flint Generals. He's from Quebec as well. I didn't meet him in Quebec. I met him here in Flint. because he worked for me in the summers part-time. Well, then fast forward, once I got back into real estate, and then I had this kind of pivotal moment in my life where I got sober and really started focusing on my personal growth. And I went back then and played for the Flint Generals when I was like 36 years old. Well, he and I kind of had this connection, but we were playing an alumni game against the Detroit Red Wings. His name is Stefan Rochute. So Steph and I are in the locker room. We're half dressed, and we're watching the race at Churchill Downs of a horse that we were trying to buy. And his name was Chocolate Ride. In fact, you can see that there.
Oh, cool.
So we ended up in this horse that day for $40,000. And it was our first thoroughbred. And he went on to win 13 races. He made like $700,000. And so all of a sudden, we don't just own a horse. We're thrust into all these state races, and I'm getting interviewed, and fucking ESPN's calling me to do interviews. I mean, just wild stuff, right?
Yeah.
But the blessing that horse brought us, really, I mean, it's emotional, man. You know, horse racing is like, to me, it is the greatest thing because it's the most difficult thing. I like to do things that are really, really difficult, right? Like jumping out of a plane isn't difficult. It's just scary.
Right.
You don't need any, like, you just jump. Horse racing is such a difficult industry to have success in, especially in thoroughbreds. So when we got back into horses, it was thoroughbreds. And we're still in that now. You know, I run a syndicate where people can come in, invest money. We handle all of that for them. I do all the handling of the training and all of those things. But so many cool things happen with that horse. I mean, we traveled. We raced on Derby Day 2 years in a row. We've been in New York, New Orleans. Like, I could just rattle off all these trips. And some of the best memories that I have of our families are on those trips, you know? So it's the experiences again, that piece of it, because money's gone, right? But the experiences you hold on forever. And that's really what motivates me with the horses, because bringing people into something that they've never experienced, and then they have this ultimate high of their horse winning.
Yeah.
It's a phenomenal thing.
That's really cool. I've come across a few horse people in my days here in Lexington. One of them owned Animal Kingdom. He was one of the owners of Animal Kingdom.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I sold a house from him. I'm trying to think of what his name, but he syndicated. I remember when we sold him a house, he had like 150, his tax returns, he had 150 different companies. You know, every horse was a company. Yeah. And I can't think of his name right now.
I can't think of his name either, but ironically enough, they just horse racing's big into Twitter, right?
Yes.
On Twitter just yesterday, I saw a thing on Animal Kingdom because he had won this race coming up at Turfway Park, and then he won the Derby.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So yeah,
he had the trophy sitting on his mantle. He had the trophy sitting on his mantle.
I mean, this horse here, this is Kentucky Downs, Kentucky Goats. Like, that's my second favorite story, because this horse is a horse that I had interest in for quite a while in buying, right? And he came up for auction. We flew down. I bought him that day. Then I brought him home to a farm here, and I took care of him for 2 weeks, prepped him, got him ready, sent him back to Brad Cox, which is a whole nother crazy story. Like, he was the first trainer that I hired just on a gut instinct. Now he's going to be a Hall of Fame trainer. I mean, he's blown up. It's unbelievable. And he's still a good buddy of mine. So he took this horse. We get him ready for Kentucky Downs. We paid $55,000 for this horse. His first start, he wins, makes $120,000.
Wow.
And again, bringing new people came in on that deal. In fact, one of the guys I took down with me, I had him bidding on the horse, like giving him that experience. Like, that's what I really like, is to give people those experiences, because I know those are going
really cool
long term. So yeah, that was a really cool deal. I got trophies all over the place here. We don't need to.
That's awesome.
But that's a passion of mine, you know, and it's like this mastermind that I started. It's a passion project. I love pouring back into others. And, you know, it's like growing this business. People always say to me, when is enough enough? I'm like, never. Because it's not about the enough. It's about the people. It's about how many people can I impact. And when I, like today, we have our team meetings every Tuesday. I look around the room and I can see Jake, and I know what he was doing before he worked here. And I can see Danny, and I can see Meredith, and I can see Ian. Like, I know these people's personal stories.
Yeah.
Right. How our company, not just me, the environment has impacted them all. And so it's never enough, you know, and then as that's grown, then it's like, okay, this is way bigger than me. It's way bigger than I ever thought it would be. Now I have to start thinking about I hate to use the word term legacy, because it feels a little bit ego-ish, but like, when I'm dead and gone, this thing's still got to keep growing.
Yeah.
right? Because I'm responsible for 100 people right now. That 100 is going to be 200 someday. Then it's going to be 500. Then it's going to be 1,000. So that's a lot of the things that I'm focused on each and every day inside of the business. I don't really sell anymore.
There's a lot there. One, I went muskie fishing with Andy Belson. I don't know if you know that. I've been muskie fishing.
That's awesome.
Yeah. The only time I've ever been muskie fishing. We caught a bunch of muskie too.
Well, listen, I call Andy the world's greatest, worst fisherman. Because he'll tell you how fucking good he is. And every time I go fishing with him, he doesn't catch anything.
That's awesome. That's funny. That's funny. So when you said that about the future and the legacy, I think about that a lot, especially like, to be honest with you, I got into real estate because I didn't really like real estate agents. And I think that a lot of this stuff that's going on with NAR, NAR, to me is like the most beautiful thing. I mean, like, it's instead of having a level playing field, like, let's let the cream rise, right? Like, let's get through this. And just watching people vomit on the internet and like say all the things that they're saying, that entitlement is what got me into the business in the first place. Like, you don't deserve anything. You don't deserve anything. Like, what makes you think you deserve something, right? So I think about that.
Or because
go ahead.
People say, people will say that to me, oh, you deserve it. I'm like, no, I fucking earned it.
Right.
It's ridiculous, right? And so I love that you're using that language, because I think language, the words that we speak, are so important. Like, today I made a post, right? People talk about being stressed. And again, I have this mastermind. And the reason this came up is last night on the mastermind at the end of the lesson, somebody asked me this question about these words, and they kind of rattled off all these negative words. And they're like, how do you not let that creep in? I go, because I don't even use those words. Those words don't exist. So I think the words and the language that we speak is so important to not just how we're going to function in the world, but how we make ourselves feel when we're using those types of words. So like, this post was about being stressed. I'm like, if anybody around here could be stressed, it would be me. I don't feel any stress because I don't give it credence.
Right. Well, I had an experience back in October of 2022. Is that when the interest rates started? It's 2020, October 2022. That's when the rates went to 8%, right? I mean, everything here, and I don't know about there, I mean, it came to a screeching halt. I mean, like, everybody stopped doing what they were doing. And I recently had a son. So I'm 48 and my son's 3.5. So my son was like a year older, I think, at the time. And I started thinking about, for the first time in my life, I started thinking about death. And I started thinking about what would happen if I got into a car accident, where my mind never goes to that place. I've always been like this, like you said, like, I don't let negative words into my space, and I don't let that into my mind. But I started going down this rabbit hole. Like, I didn't adjust my finances. I'm not ready for this. And, I didn't spend enough. I'm in trouble. I mean, I thought the world was crashing, right? And it's amazing that my way out of that was, first of all, I went and got some life insurance, which I didn't have at the time. And it took like 3 or 4 months to approve it. And when the day that they told me that they approved my life insurance was like this moment of clarity and like release. And I was like, oh my gosh, they bet on me for 20 years. I'm going to be alive for another 20 years at least. Right. But then it's funny how everything in my business started changing too. It's like, when you get focused on what business isn't moving, you're not paying attention to what is, right? Like, it's like, there's always something. That was my biggest lesson of October of 22, is like, people are dying. I mean, people are getting married, people are getting divorced, people are getting transferred, people are still moving. It's just like, just not the way they were before. And
one of the greatest lessons I had. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I would just say that it really got me to think a lot about the future of this business. And this is before, now with this settlement, and watching the people's reaction, watching how the business is, and watching the internet, and watching Zillow, and I think about my son, and I say, okay, what's this business going to be in 15 years? In 15 years, if this is the way that it continues, I know that people are still going to, like, investment properties are still going to be, people are still going to own properties and people are going to live in them, right? That's still going to happen, that piece of this business. But as far as the retail sales, I mean, concerns me, like in the future. Like, like, I don't know if you know this, but the Big Boy in Grand Blanc, that was my family's business. And I grew up in that restaurant. My last day there was December of 1999, December 31st, 1999. So, when 2000 hit, I was going into the mortgage business.
Okay.
And then I went to go to my first day at the mortgage business, and they told me they weren't going to hire me. Like, they must have found something out about my past or something. They said they're not going to hire me. And I had already gone through 2 months of getting through the family, like that I'm not going to be there anymore.
Right.
My dad didn't talk to me for like 8 months or something. It was a long time. But that was my entry to the real estate world, was like, I told my dad I was leaving, and now I've got to make this work. But it was mortgages for the first 7 or 8 years until 2007. But yeah, as far as, and I don't know where I was going with that, but as far as like the business, the legacy of the business, the legacy part, the part where, your son, that's really cool that he works in your business.
Yeah.
Really. I mean, I work with my family most of my life, but to think where do you think it's going to go? I mean, you think retail sales of real estate is going to be something?
Yeah. I mean, this will sound odd, I think probably, but I pay no attention to any of that.
Yeah.
I look at what each day, what can I control today? And the one thing that I've learned is that the past, I feel like we can almost have more impact on than the future, because the past, I think, comes with a lot of learning. It comes with a lot of ability to forgive. It comes with a lot of ability to take things that we've done right or wrong and use them in the future. But I can't do anything about what's going to happen in 5 years. And so I just don't, and I honestly, and I say this very humbly, I think a lot of these traits that I have, they could be, they work for me and against me in faith. But when it comes to certain things like this, like the whole NAR thing, I don't give a shit about it. It means nothing to me. I know I'm going to win.
Right.
I win by controlling my today. Now, are we going to make changes? Yeah, of course. But all that's coming, no matter what I think about 5 years from now, no matter what no matter what actually happens 5 years from now.
Yeah.
One day at a time. And so I just really focus on today, and I don't spend, and I'm not, so like when I had somebody hit me up, about doing a podcast to talk all about NAR, and I'm like, it's going to be fucking real quick podcast, because I don't think about NAR. I don't care about NAR. Yeah. Obviously, it's going to impact us, but again, I'm going to win. I'm going to bet on me. And because of that, everybody in our organization, they're not all sitting around worried about the shit, because they adapt. We're going to evolve, and we're going to come out on top the way that we always have. And I don't say that egotistically. It's just my job, right? That's what I must do for my people. So, I don't really have an opinion on it, because I feel like, well, first of all, opinions don't drive businesses, and everybody's running around, like you said, making all these crazy posts, and that comes from fear, right? And I think that as leaders, the best thing we could do is stay steadfast and understand that as things come, yes, we're going to adapt, or, we're going to change, we're going to evolve, we're going to adapt, and we're going to keep pushing through. And at the end of the day, I think because listen, 5 years ago, everybody thought Zillow was going to put realtors out of business, right? And some still do. And the way we do business is obviously going to evolve and change, but I still believe that there's that human connection piece is still so important when you're going into something as big as buying a home. There needs to be trust built, and there needs to be trust delivered by us as realtors. And I think as long as we do that and we provide great value, then, the show is going to go on. But again, like you said, I've got 100 people, right, inside of our business, from our real estate business to our mortgage company to our title company, to all the other pieces. And I have a responsibility to make sure those people have food on their table, and I have zero worries. So if I'm not worried, nobody else should be worried. They should just understand that, yes, things are going to change and evolve. But we're talking about this decision was 3 days ago?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even know. Was it Friday or Thursday last week? Whatever.
I don't know what day it was.
Well, I mean, in 3 days, nothing's changed yet. A lot of people way smarter than me are going to figure out how this is legally going to work. As sooner or later, a precedent will be set. And then that will begin the new norm. Until then, I mean, shit, you know? So I just don't get worried about that stuff. And again, that's just how I'm built. And I think that as leaders, we need to shoulder that stuff internally and let our people do what they're there to do, which is not run a business. It's to go serve their clients.
This has been something that I've been working on for years, but especially over the past year. I mean, this isn't something that happened overnight. It didn't just get announced last week. I mean, this is something that's been going on for a while. I mean, with the lawsuit and with all the stuff that's going on. But it goes back to the day I started in real estate and the reason why. I mean, it goes back to that moment, you know, like I got into it because I didn't feel like people should be entitled to anything, you know, and just doing the right thing for people.
Well, I'm with you on that. I mean, when we were flipping houses and we would have different agents list them, I always kind of felt like, you know, and when we had a few different agents that we worked with, so I'm not speaking about anyone in particular, but I'm like, fuck, if they can do it, I can do it, because very little work being done. And I've always kind of been like this. I'm very intrigued by marketing and branding and, you know, just how all of that works. Like, that's really how we built this business, through marketing and branding, right? Mm-hmm. Magnifying the things that we're doing, the sales, essentially. Yeah. And I just always felt like, well, they put a sign in the yard and they leave, you know? And so that played a role too in why I made that decision. I'm with you on that.
That's a really interesting perspective that you have, though. I call it the light switch. That's what I actually feel, the light switch. That's how I've gotten through all the dark days of my life, is I just hit the switch and I can actually feel it on my finger. Boom, light switch off. Then I just move on. Yeah. It does, like when you said it could have a positive effect or a negative effect. I mean, yeah, I might seem cold sometimes, or I might seem, you know, not empathetic, you know, like I lack empathy, right? But in that, it keeps a lot of that stuff out of my mind. But it's interesting that you even go as far, the part about NAR, right? And I get what you're saying. Like, we don't have any control over it, but like, I feel a responsibility to the people in my marketplace. I feel a responsibility to them to help them through it. That's really the main reason that I posted on my Facebook the other day that I'm going to do a live Zoom on Thursday. This is the other part I'm a little nervous about, especially after talking to you. Now you got me thinking a totally different way, but not totally different. But I posted on there, like, would you be interested in a Zoom? If I put a Zoom on Thursday, I'm telling you right now, there's been about, I think, like 60 agents that responded to it. And I sent it out in my email blast too to the agents, but I know that 32 people, before we got on here, 32 people had registered for the Zoom already. And I don't have anything that they don't, except a positive attitude. Like, I'm thinking I see it as a win. I see the opportunities in it. I see the opportunities in, you know, presenting your value and, you know, being more clear on how you get paid. I mean, that's something that's been important to me since I started, you know, and I don't see it as the dark day in real estate. I think it's a positive thing, right? But it's just, you know, that's the reason I'm asking you these questions, because I'm working on what my message is to these people on Thursday besides my positivity, right? Like, I don't know. I don't really know what it is. Like, dissecting what the court case was, or, you know, like, just the beginning, you know, well, here's the outcome of it, and this is how it might affect you, and this is how you can be prepared for it. Like, more value. Like, understand why you do it.
At the end of the day, for agents, right? Not leadership, not ownership. They're looking at it on a different level. But for agents, you just, again, need to be able to, some people are going to ask about it. Most people probably aren't initially, right? Except maybe more because 8,000 agents went and posted a bunch of dumb shit online, right? Yeah. And by the way, you're not helping. No. And also the news is putting out a lot of incorrect narratives, right? So there's that piece, and all you have to do is be able to have a conversation, human to human, to whether you're going on a listing appointment or going to meet a buyer, to help them understand it so that you can move past it right now. Yeah. Until things change, and obviously you need to be prepared for when that change comes, but until things changed, or until things actually changed, they haven't changed yet. Right. You know, so I just, again, I'm glad I won't be on your Zoom, because I wouldn't be much value. I didn't. I can take care of it. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, just take care of people.
Yeah.
Just take care of people. Pay attention to stuff you can control.
But I think you're right. At the end, the cream will rise to the top, just like it always does.
Yeah.
Right. And when all this stuff washes away, it'll be just another thing that had happened inside of our industry. And guess what? It'll be another one that happens.
Right.
This one, I think, just is magnified because, it involves money. If it involved the possession of the home is going to be totally changed. No one would give a shit. But because it involves money and a great big lawsuit, then, everybody wants to talk about it.
Lots of money. The past 5 episodes that I've done this, and it's really interesting, the difference in the responses. So here we go. And then if you don't want to answer, you can pass.
I don't give a shit about it. I'll answer anyway.
Okay. All right. What's the best strategy for a new agent to get their first client?
Social media.
Okay. What do you focus on to learn and grow?
Self-improvement.
What can an agent do to improve their online marketing and social media presence?
Be omnipresent on many platforms all the damn time. People use this excuse, well, I don't want to overpost. No, you're just afraid to fucking post at all. And you can't overpost because as soon as you post, the thing's gone in your feed. So be authentic and be transparent. People want to work with people that they trust, and they want to work with real people. So just be you. You look how you look. You sound how you sound. If you're afraid of that, don't leave the house. Get a different profession.
Love that. If you only focused on one form of prospecting, what would that be?
Open houses. Building relationships with people, man. An opportunity. People, man, they poo-poo open houses. To me, I told you in the beginning, and we're still doing it 20, 30 a week, depending on the time of year. You have an opportunity to shake someone's hand, look somebody in the eye, and build real rapport. No brainer.
Where did you learn to negotiate?
In the trenches, just doing it. I remember one of the biggest deals I negotiated, that client are still friends with now. I had a yellow pad of paper, and this was the list price, and here was our original offer, and I just worked through that whole thing. And that really taught me a valuable lesson, because now, often in negotiations, and this is a great tip for people, is often a buyer or a seller will say, you get an offer or you're writing an offer. Well, what do you think? And I will just say to people, I have no idea. I'm like, what do you mean you don't know? So, well, I don't really know what you're willing to do. And without understanding and really knowing what you're willing to pay or what you're willing to take, it's very difficult for me to give you the next option. So letting people know, like, the trust that we have together allows me to do the best job for you.
How do you effectively manage your time?
I get shit done. Yeah, plain and simple. And I don't say that to be pompous. I wake up, I know what I'm going to do as soon as I wake up. I know what I'm going to do as soon as I get done doing that, and I just get shit done. I don't look at in balance. I don't look at any of that stuff. I know what I need to do in a day, and I make sure that I get it done. You said manage time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I manage my choices, not my fucking time.
What are some common pitfalls agents should avoid?
Not getting out of bed, not showing up, not working through the difficult times. I think too often we want to put something in and get something out. And I think that's the separator in real estate, is understanding that you've got to make umpteen deposits before you get a return. And so you got to believe in the work that you're doing. And I think that pitfall is, it's like, okay, I did something, where's the return? And you can be doing all the right things, and you could be this close to the breakthrough, and then you stop because you wanted that immediate gratification, and you got to keep going.
What is the profile of an agent who should join a team?
All of them. Listen, and now if you're already established and out there and you're doing well, whatever, you're probably talking about somebody getting into real estate. Every fucking one of them, man. And listen, the way real estate is built right now, it would be very, very difficult to come in and have tremendous success anymore, right? You look at all of the lead platforms, where everything's going, the large teams consume and control almost all of these things. So it would be very difficult. And here's the other piece, is that most people aren't really good at accountability, and people get into real estate, right? Because like, oh, well, I want to have flexibility, or I want to have time. You're going to work more than ever. You just get to manage that time a little bit differently on when you're choosing your time to do things with your friends or family or whatever. But at the end of the day, we all need accountability. We all need camaraderie. A team, the dynamic that goes on inside of that team is way greater than just business also, right? I mean, we've got like 13 people on our team right now. No one's drinking. We've got 13 people, 15 people in the gym every day. Like, those things would not be existing. And so many people that have success, you throw them on an island by themselves, they can't keep doing it. So I think that, that piece is so important, man. And I think COVID taught us that, right? Like, humans are not meant to be isolated. They're meant to be together. They're meant to work together and to function together. And so every single person should go join a team. Just make sure you join the right team.
That's key. What are some reasons agents don't join teams?
Ego. Focused on money only. Never really did the math on their time. It's funny. I had a gentleman that, probably sold like 120 homes a year, had staff, had admin, had this, had that. And I think here's what people don't do is all they think about is their split, right? Like, people run around, what's the split? What's your fucking 1099?
Yeah, right.
I mean, I think we had 15 agents last year that made over 6 figures, some in the 2s, some in the 3s. Like, and then our top agent travels like crazy, right? So you talk about work-life balance. I don't know. I just like to think of harmony and happiness, being able to serve your clients and also living a life. And so I just think that people get too hung up on their ego, or they get too hung up on what's your split, instead of really diving deep and looking, what's the longevity of your ability to have a career in real estate, continue to earn 6 figures while having time.
What do potential buyers and sellers look for in an agent?
I want to say I don't know. I've never been in their shoes. But I think at the end of the day, I think an important piece, and this is for any team leader when you're hiring, you got to have people with personality. Because personality is the quickest way to build trust. And so if I'm a consumer, and again, I'm not bought or sold through a realtor, but I would assume they want to know, can you do the job, right? They want to know, are you accessible? They want to believe that they can trust in you. And they want to enjoy the experience as well. People want to work with people that they trust. Generally, they know, like, or trust, right? And so if you can build that rapport, you can break down walls by creating trust. That's who they want to work with. They want to work with people. Think about, value. Value is not a cost. Value is in the delivery. And so are you able to deliver on what you say you're going to do, build the trust, the rapport, and then get the job done? Actually follow through and get the job done.
What technology does an agent need?
A team. I mean, listen, all the technology you need is right here. So that's what you need, a phone. I mean, listen, as we say that, right? Hey, John, I just saw your billboards, da-da-da-da. Like, this is nonstop. So you have to be seen all the time. But like, billboards are a great example. Literally, I'm not going to read the rest of that. I don't have time. I got about 18 seconds left. But right? And how do you be omnipresent? Well, gang, it's free. You want to meet them.
What are some best practices for staying in contact with your past clients?
Call them.
Probably use the phone.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I always say this to people, this is so easy. If you have good intent behind why you're in real estate and you're truly in it to take care of the clients, everything else will take care of itself as long as you put in the work. So what's the best process for staying in touch with your past clients? Call them. Say hi. Ask how their family is doing. Be involved. See what they're doing on social media as well. That's a great way to stay engaged with them. But again, it's got to be out of the sincerity that you really care about what's going on in their lives. And do that. It's such a multiplier to building your business, is building relationships and building true, not because what's in it for you. There's a saying, right? Give to give. How about just give to give? How about doing what you're supposed to do as a human being and taking care of people, and you couple that with hard work and trust? This is an easy business. And I say this all the time all the time. Selling shit's easy because it's not about selling stuff. It's about taking care of people. So it all goes back to the hard work, the intent, and and following through. I wish there was some magic pill to these questions, but it's always the same answer: hard work.
Yeah, it is. That's kind of the point of them too.
Yeah,
it's kind of the point of them. I mean, really, why are some agents thriving right now?
because
While others are struggling.
yeah, because they've done all of the things that we just talked about, and they've done them consistently.
Yeah.
Everything is about consistency, and anybody can work hard for a little while.
Yeah.
Can you do it? If you think about well, I don't know, how many agents are there? You probably know this number. How many agents are there? Ballpark.
I don't know. Million? I don't know.
Million agents, right? 900,000 of them can't sustain work ethic long term. So that's your competition. And this is why this is really easy. Not, I don't know, making shit up, obviously, right? But probably 90% of them can't maintain a strong work ethic long term. Another 5% of them don't have great intent behind why they're doing what. So this thing gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And so the separator is really simple. It's just being able to do this stuff consistently, long term, and still doing it when you're not getting the immediate gratification that you think that you want. And that's an important piece. You know what to do and you do it. But if you still don't get the result you're looking for right away, can you keep doing it? So consistent.
Yeah. In fact, I think that's probably my top thing that I've taken away from our conversation. Like when you were talking about people, because I don't want to miss this, is that when you were talking about people and how they might be right on the edge, they're like this close, but it's, the sales cycle, the relationship cycle, this is a business that it doesn't happen quickly. It's like, you sell insurance, you can get write a policy today.
Yeah.
You sell a house, you're 30, 45 days in no matter what. Maybe two weeks if somebody's got a check, they're going to write a check for it. But that doesn't happen very often, especially on your first deal or your...
Sales cycle right now is longer than it's been in quite a few years.
Yeah.
Look, I'm in the market and the sales cycle now is 120 days plus for the majority of people. So
yeah,
you've got to be able to sustain and push through. So
yeah,
a good example of this, go ahead. Well, I'll share this example with you about...
Go ahead.
Okay, so one of our people inside of our organization that runs a TC office, right? We do a leadership call and I'm like, you guys got to get these are people in leader position. You still got to get on this thing. You got to be seen. More video. That's how you build trust and rapport and how you're seen. You don't need a friggin' billboard. This is your billboard, right? And so Matt does this video because last year in the Traverse City market, we were the fastest or number one growing market share company in that market, right? Well, and here's the other piece. If nobody knows it, then you really weren't. What does it matter?
Yeah.
You got to be able to tell people this stuff, And so he does this video and talks about that. And the next day, I get a text message on this leadership group. There's about 5 of us. He does this video. An agent it was either New Jersey or Philadelphia, I don't remember which, a broker in that area saw his video. Now, by the way, for context, and I know this because I talked about this on my Mastermind the other day. I went very in depth on this. He has 300 friends on Facebook. This isn't like some social media guru, right? He's got 60 followers on Instagram. And this is not something I usually look at, but to share this with my Mastermind group, I really wanted them to understand, this isn't because this is like some social media guru. It's because he did the work. So he does this video. He ends up getting a phone call from this broker. And again, I don't remember if it was New Jersey or Philadelphia. And the broker's having breakfast and on Instagram sees his video. And this particular person had a client looking to purchase up to $3 million in Traverse City. Reaches out to him and hires him, gives him the referral, all of that stuff because of that. And this is the point that everybody needs to get. And so immediately he gets this amazing return on that input, right? And, he puts that in this post and everybody's like, congratulations, great job, da-da-da-da, and everybody's super excited. And I said to him, gosh, what I'd be asking myself is how many did I miss out on by not doing this more often, right? How many deals have I missed? Also, if I didn't get that immediate return, would I still have the fortitude to keep doing it, even though I didn't get the result that said, hey, good job, buddy?
Yeah.
And that's that piece where people miss out is this. You've got to be, people always want to talk about how many people like their post. Most people that are watching aren't commenting or aren't giving you a heart. those are the people that are going to reach out. And we have that with recruits all the time. People will start watching, they'll start listening, and then slowly over time, they reach out. It's the same thing with clients. So you just have to be able to sustain that work output. And that's the big separator.
Yeah. It's really interesting to, over time, putting content out and like sharing your journey, like how it does come back. Like I have had people reach out with referrals and had people reach out, but it's interesting the people that like tell you, that they watch it and they don't, they're, oh, love the stuff you're putting, but they're not commenting or liking or you don't even know they're there, but they are.
You'll get people say, I've been watching you for 3 years.
Yeah. I got a guy called in about a YouTube video.
Yep.
And, I mean, when I get a phone call about business, I mean, because I've got them all routed different places, the calls that come in. When somebody calls my cell phone, like it throws me way off. When they're like, "Oh, I saw your YouTube video," or "Hey, I want you to come over and sell my house." I'm like, "Oh." It's like, I mean, everything I do is like I'm calling somebody else.
That video, that is the trust builder because you're able to actually be seen and heard, right?
Yeah.
And again, I think this goes back to like, I think often people don't want to do that because they're afraid they might turn people off. Fine.
Yeah.
You're not going to be everything to everyone. You'll never be. But if you want to stay in hiding, you'll be nobody to anyone. You've got to be seen and accept the fact that it's the 50-50 rule, man.
That was question 19. What do you say to haters?
Fuck haters.
You don't even pay attention to them. I don't even get the answer to it.
Give the shit less, man.
I spend an hour with you, I already know the answer.
Yeah, if I worried about that, I would be nowhere. And I think people get so caught up on that. Now, I talked about, it's so funny you're asking these questions because literally I just taught a whole lesson on criticism and critique and actually using that as a catalyst to go do good things. If you're going to do anything great, you're going to get criticized. Who gives a shit? You're going to have haters. Who gives a shit?
Yeah.
And I think this is where a lot of people struggle, though, and this is what holds a lot of people back. And you have to be able to push through those things or you're not going to do anything. You can't here's what I think about. Instead of worrying about the haters think, I worry about what my family thinks. Did I go out and work my ass off to provide for my family today? Or did I let the opinion of a hater stop me from doing that? And when you start to reframe things and you look at things from a different perspective, you're like, oh yeah, don't do that. That's, that's obviously not productive. So I look at haters as a barometer of success. The more haters, the better.
And I almost feel like that goes along with what you were saying about people quitting too soon, because I know, like, when I first came into this market, I started selling real estate. I mean, my second year, I sold $30 million, I think. So I was taking business from other people. And that really got me some bad press. And I really had a lot of people coming in, but I didn't really have anybody to talk to about it. And I felt alone, and I don't think it got me to the point that I wanted to quit, but it definitely changed my, I let it affect me a little bit, but now it's more of a like a chip on my shoulder that pushes me than anything else.
That's how you have to take that energy and change it, right? And right? Things affect us. If we allow things to affect us like that, then they will affect us, or we can take that and we can change that energy and divert it into a positive. And I think it goes back to how we frame things as how we're going to handle things. But at the end of the day, I think this is a big piece to this. It's there's only one person that has judgment over me.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. I'm that content with who I am as a human being. I know my flaws. I know my heart. I know my intent. I know who I am. And I know who I belong to, which is Jesus Christ. Nothing you're going to say to me, man.
Has it always been that easy for you, though? Like, in the beginning of the journey, have you always been that clear on?
Listen, bro, I've gone through, as a child, abuse. Anything you could think of, I've gone through, right? And so I've had to overcome all of that. And because of that, it's put me in this position where, it's that easy for me. Yeah. Because I understand that none of those things define me and nothing anyone says defines me. Now, at the same time, I don't do illegal things. I don't do things with bad intent. I don't do things that weigh on my conscience. So I don't ever have that voice in my head, because I'm not saying everything I do is right. Like I make mistakes, right? I make the wrong decisions sometimes, but my intent is always pure. And so my conscience is always clean. And I think big piece. And I think that's a piece that people, for me again, and I don't know where people are in their faith, and that's great. I know where I am, and I know that when my conscience is clear and I make decisions based on what is right and what is wrong, and I mean from an ethical standpoint, what is right, what is wrong from an ethical standpoint. If I make the right decision from an ethical standpoint, but it still is the wrong decision, I don't care. I learn from it and I move on. And I just that piece of people understanding, like, I don't give people the power to judge me. And because I don't, then I truly, you ask that question, is it really that easy for me? Yeah.
I believe it is. I believe it is, man. I believe it is.
Yeah.
I mean, we keep coming back to it's funny how simple the conversation, the answers to the questions, like and especially the way that you present the answers to the question, it's just so simple. It's like, it's not like, people make such a bigger deal out of things than they really are.
Well, listen, I'm not a real smart dude, right? I mean, to read a book takes me forever. I don't retain well. I barely graduated high school because I had zero interest in it. I'm a people person. I'm a common sense person, and I go with my gut, right? And that's how I built this business.
That's awesome.
It's not because I'm by any means some super smart dude that's highly educated. It's the exact opposite. You can't outwork me. My intent is pure. I want the best for others more than I want the best for me, especially in a good spot, I mean, but big deal.
Yeah. I'm
not quit because I can impact positively too many other people. That's why I love this mastermind that I started. I'm able to have such I've found this thing where inside of our organization, as that grows, I get to pour into them and have this big impact on them. But that only grows so big. The mastermind can grow exponentially. And now here I am able to have this impact on these other people. And so it's like a whole other layer to the fulfillment that I get, and that's a beautiful thing. That's what I love most, is just being in that place of being able to give back to others, because I've been very blessed. I've lived through some crazy shit. I was saved by God and also by my choices, right? Because at the end of the day, we God gives us free will. We have to make those choices. And so I'm just focused on getting better every single day, one day at a time, and that's, again, not 5 years from now. Who the hell knows? I mean, we'll figure it out. I control today. And if I really good today, even tomorrow takes care of itself based on the work that I do today. And I think he's question 20 to ask.
Question number 20.
I don't know. I think you said the last one was 19.
The last one was 19. There's 20. This is one of my favorite questions.
Okay.
And then we'll end it there. I mean, I want to end it right there because that was really good. I mean, but I do want to ask you this question. What should an agent consider before starting a team?
Why are you doing it? Why are you doing it? If it's for money, don't do it. I mean, listen, that sounds weird, right? But I think the ego is, a lot of the reason why I stayed at RE/MAX so long is because, and I didn't go independent, is because I didn't want it to be about me. I didn't want it to be perceived to be about me. And I also didn't want it to be about me. So I stayed there until they fired me. But if you're growing a team simply because you think it's going to make you a bunch of money and you're going to work less, you're absolutely bass-backwards.
Yeah.
Work more. And by the way, for all entrepreneurs, the bigger you grow, the more work you do. Right? And so you shouldn't start a team if all you're in it for is the money, because the intent is wrong and you're building a house of cards. It's going to fall apart.
This conversation's been great. I mean, I truly am inspired. I mean, I think your story is amazing. And I don't think we've ever met before in this conversation, but we've been friends on Facebook a long time, and we know a lot of the same people. Nathan Grisomkowski, that was like my best friend growing up.
Oh, really?
And I noticed, when he had that accident, you were involved in the car. You had talked a lot of the things that you said in this conversation, like I've seen firsthand. You do live that. So, I mean, it's really cool. It's really cool to see it full circle.
And I thank you for that. And it's cool that you recognize that, right? Because I think that's the piece is like when I talk about the intent, I talk about the goodwill, and I talk about being able to just be you.
Yeah.
When you can just be you. And so, yeah, I mean, that was a traumatic thing he went through, and Andy's obviously very good friends with them, Belson earlier. Listen, we all have shit going on. We all have stuff in our past. We have stuff that we're dealing with now. And even if we don't have anything right now, something's going to happen in the future. And I think it's really important to love one another, support one another, and just be in the trenches with people as well.
That's really good. Well, thanks for your time, man. I really appreciate it.
For sure. And if people want to check out the Mastermind, man, it's getinthewinnercircle.com. Business owners, entrepreneurs, no matter really what you're doing, if you're trying to grow personally or professionally, it's a no-brainer for the cost that I put it at. People think I'm crazy for doing that, but I really don't care because I want to have an impact as many people as possible. So I'd love for people to check it out. Again, it's getinthewinnercircle.com.
And we'll put the link in the
that would be great. And if they don't join, it don't matter either. But it's a spot for people to come get, I think, just reinvigorated and to push through every single day of their lives, personally and professionally. I think that's how we'll end this, is like, no matter what you build business-wise, if you're not taking care of yourself personally and you're not always on this trajectory of self-improvement, again, you're building something on a house of cards, and everything that's going on personally will show up professionally. So it's super important that we get dialed in on both areas of that.
Awesome, man. Thank you.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you having me on. That's you. I wish you all the best. And next time in Lexington, I will hit you up. We'll go to the race.
Yes, for sure, man. For sure. Do that.
Awesome.
Thanks.
You got it, brother.